Agriscience. Today we're going to finish up environmental science with just looking at some of the tools of the trade that are used in the environmental science industry. And some of these you probably have used before. Some of them might look a little bit different or strange to you. But we're going to take a look at some of the ones that are actually involved in this particular industry. There is a competition called Agricultural Tool and Materials Identification. And more or less, what it is identifying different types of agricultural tools and their uses. And so in each unit, there is a small portion of the unit that shows some of the tools that are actually used in that one particular area of agriscience. And so we're going to take a look at some of the tools for you to be familiar with. And as we get closer to the end of the semester, we will probably do a little tool competition so that we can see how people do, see what kind of tools you're actually familiar with. So some of the ones for the environmental science industry, here is the first one. This is a bush axe. We don't keep a lot of these around Crest High School. We do have some environmental science tools, but we don't keep a whole lot of bush axes around the high school because you can see that this is a pretty dangerous looking piece of equipment. But it is used for cutting bushes and undergrowth, so you actually can get underneath trees and shrubs and things that are, leaving what we call a litter layer in a forest or in an area, which just means that you have low growing things that actually can cause fire and stuff like that. So a lot of times you just take those bush axe and you can use it to remove some of those low growing bushes and undergrowth out of your way. So probably won't see a whole lot of these around the high school because that's a pretty scary looking tool to keep around these days. A chainsaw file, it does exactly what you think it would. It actually is used for sharpening the chain on a chainsaw. One of the most dangerous tools out there is a dull chainsaw, because people will use that chainsaw to try to cut through something, and when it doesn't want to cut well, when it's not sharp enough, they'll start rocking that chainsaw back and forth, and it just becomes more dangerous. So a chainsaw file is going to be an opportunity for someone to make sure that that chain on that chainsaw is honed and that the blade, the chain itself, is sharp and kept in good condition. This is a half hatchet. Some of you have probably used one of these before, and typically it's just going to be used for cutting firewood. So if you know somebody who has a wood burning fireplace or even one of those wood burning water heaters, you probably have seen people use a hatchet many times before. This is a half hatchet because it only does have a half blade on it. Okay, so you probably have never seen one of these before. This is an increment borer, and the purpose behind this tool is to figure out how old a tree is. So what you're actually going to do is the end that is right here has these little screw threads on it, and you actually are going to drill that into a tree. Now, this is hard to do even with a pine tree, and so this is not a job for somebody who is, not able to put a whole lot of force and energy behind it. This is very, very tough, even in softwood trees. So you're going to actually screw this into the tree and kind of eyeball it until you get about to the center of the tree. And then there's a little hole right here, and you can't really see that very well in the picture. But you're going to take this piece out, and when you take this piece out, it's going to have a little core, and that little core piece just comes out of the tree, and you can count the lines, which are essentially the rings of the tree, and you can tell about how old it is. You can tell about what its growth rate looks like. Hopefully, if you're in cohort A or B, we'll have an opportunity to take a look at an increment borer. We have a couple of those that we have had in the past, and they sometimes disappear. So we're hoping we can find an increment borer to show to you while you are in class. A planting bar. This is for planting tree seedlings, and a lot of it is just to keep you from breaking your back. This planting bar, you actually would just step on it. You're going to rock it back and forth in the soil and create a hole, and then you can put the tree right down into that hole, that little tree sapling right down into that hole, and kind of step on that hole so that you can close that back up. So this is a quick and easy way by hand to set out tree seedlings. This is a soil auger, and this is what we would use in order to be able to get soil samples. We talked about soil profiles earlier, and yes, it is absolutely easier to look at a soil profile by digging a huge hole, but not all of us have got backhoes and front end loaders in order to be able to do that. And I wouldn't suggest going and digging a big hole in your parents' front yard. A soil auger, though, can do the same thing without leaving a big mess. You actually can take soil samples so that you can look at those and see what it is that you're working with in a particular area. There also are soil tubes that don't necessarily have the auger piece on them that you can stick down into soil and get the samples as well. This is a tree diameter tape, and a tree diameter tape is literally used to just measure around a tree to see what the circumference of the tree is, how big the actual tree would be. Now, in measuring the circumference of the tree, the way that this tape is set up, it was actually going to give you what the diameter of the tree is, because remember that a lot of those measurements that we're looking at are DBH, which is diameter at breast height, which is about 4.5 feet. So you're looking at what is the diameter at that particular area, and these tree diameter tapes can help you to be more accurate than just a Biltmore stick would. This is a Secchi disc, and these are used to measure the turbidity of water. How dirty is the water? I mean, you're basically looking to see how far you can see down and actually see this Secchi disc. Because you want to see what the water looks like. Is it clear water? Have you got a lot of sediment in the water? And this is just basically helping you to look and see just how clear the water actually is. A clinometer is used to measure the height of a tree. I did purchase a new clinometer before the school year for use with the natural resources class, and I will make sure to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at that. And finally, this is a Biltmore stick, also called a tree scale stick. It is called Biltmore for the same Biltmore that you think about in Asheville. If you were not aware, the Biltmore estate was really a lot of the Biltmore legacy has to do with forestry. Biltmore itself was a working farm. So not just forestry, but dairy and other industries as well. So there is a tremendous amount of forestry education that owes its roots to the Biltmores. Pisgah National Forest was actually donated by the Biltmores to be a refuge, a national forest that would not be cut down. So the Biltmores had a tremendous amount to do with forestry and the roots of forestry in our country. And this is just a simple stick that you can use in order to measure the tree diameter and the height. If you took a look at the videos that I put on how to measure trees with a Biltmore stick, then this should be just kind of a review for you, and should be an easy way for you to remember what that Biltmore tree scale stick is.